Hey guys, it's Alice and welcome back for another video. In light of recent events and all the craziness that is going on in the world right now, I was guided to share this particular story with all of you. All too often we get wrapped up in day-to-day events and become complacent with what is surrounding us that we don't look behind the veil as to the bigger picture and what we may be manipulated to see or not see in many cases. Many times missing our own lessons that are presented right in front of us. I want to start off by saying I stand with any movement that brings to light the injustices that are created in this world, that creates separation and keeps us pitted against each other. I want to remind you of two quotes, just to think about them. Divide and conquer, and divided we fall. All too often, we are being manipulated to see each other as separate, and not as a whole unit, the way we were created to be. Nothing from spirit is separate from each other. We are all one. However, there are powers who seek to control and manipulate mankind for their own devices. But we're not going there today. But I would like to encourage you to listen to this story that I had the blessing of living, witnessing for myself, and learning a very valuable lesson from a very unlikely source. If we can take time to connect with one another and share our experiences, we are then able to offer someone else the opportunity to carry the feather instead of the stone and be the lighthouse in someone else's storm. I just want to note, names have been changed. However, I ask you to please take time to really listen and understand the bigger message here. It's a valuable lesson for each of us. This was originally written as a chapel service months ago, but has been changed because some people will tune out if they perceive that you are preaching to them. And this is not my intent here. The intent here is to open our eyes as to the experiences others have lived through, to gain compassion and open ourselves up to lessons that we may be able to learn from each other. So often we get wrapped up in the day-to-day grind, relationships, worries, anxiety, and fear of what will happen tomorrow that we lose sight of what's happening right in front of us. Our journeys are not where we begin or where we end, but what happens in the middle. This is where our lessons can be learned and impact the development of who we are. When we take time to truly connect and experience life with the people Spirit puts there, we can experience life in all of its beautiful splendor. We see the magic that is all around us. These moments and the souls that we are blessed to share them with create the memories that we all hold so dear. Connecting with people is something that I have always loved to do. I guess I get that from my Grammy. I was that child that would beg and do everything I could to convince my Grammy to let me go to work with her whenever I had the chance. I loved nothing more than to go to work with her and listening to the life stories of the patients at the nursing home where she was the head RN at. And it's still a passion I have to this day. By seizing those moments and connecting with people, sharing their memories of times gone by or creating new ones, I had the blessings of experiencing life through another's eyes. Vicariously knowing what it was like to work on an ice cutter in Alaska, being a Navy wave during World War II, or the struggle of a special needs mother that had a child that chose to fight instead of aborting or institutionalizing. Many other life stories that have been shared that have all become a part of the journey. I love stories, sharing of experiences, and connecting to one another. It is through this connection we can learn and grow who we are. I have been blessed to connect with many souls and hear tons of life stories through my work, and it's still something that's true today. I would like to share with you a story of a man who I thought I was there to help him, but in actuality gave me more than I could have ever given to him. And a reminder of a lesson I seem to have forgotten. When we first moved here to South Carolina, I will honestly say I wasn't the happiest. Back home, I loved my job. I loved having my extended family, at that time close-knit, and friends close by. It broke my heart to pack up everything and leave everything I knew behind. I was struggling to adjust to a new area, a new dynamic, and I had taken a job as an in-home caregiver, going into the homes of the elderly who needed assistance with everyday life activities. And that's where Mr. J waltzed into my life. Mr. J was a fun-loving, quiet man who always smiled no matter how he was feeling. He had these big brown eyes that just always seemed to sparkle and shine, as well as a smile as big as the world. You know, one of those rare souls you instantly feel comfortable with. Mr. J was a stroke victim, and he had limited use of the left side of his body. But the limitation never stopped him or slowed him down. Our time together was typical, getting him dressed and running up the road, always on the move, running errands, going to friends and families. He never stopped, despite his wife's and my protest to take time to rest. After all, he wasn't a spring chicken anymore. When we were not tearing up the streets, our time was spent sitting on the front porch or in the fields watching his farmhand plow or plant, because in his words, I just don't trust that boy to do it right. As time went on, we would spend those beautiful spring, summer, and fall days simply talking about life. He taught me so much about life in the South, teaching me about hog jows, growing the sweetest watermelons, and how to tend and grow other crops. Then his wife would take me and try to teach me on how to cook and clean them. If I had a question about crops that he didn't raise, he would then take me to a friend that grew them, so I could see and learn for myself. He would share stories of growing up back when it was still segregated and the trials associated with growing up a black man in that type of world. He shared with me the struggles of growing up poor, the youngest of 8 children, and he would also talk about his 3 tours in Vietnam and parachuting into enemy lines and the unknown that awaited him there. Sorry, this gets me pretty emotional. He would even say someone was watching over him, sometimes prefacing these stories with, "You can't live your life in fear, and take advantage of every moment of every day you are blessed to live." He was the one who taught me to live without fear. See, every year I choose a theme, and that particular year just happened to be the year of no fear. Well, one day we were doing our usual front porch sitting. He turned to me with that glint in his eye, and he said, "Let's go for a ride on the Spider." Now, for those of you who don't know what a Spider is, it's one of those trikes that have the 2 wheels on the front and 1 wheel on the back. I can tell you I was hesitant to do so and voiced that to him saying, "Are you sure this is the best idea?" He stopped and he looked me dead in the eye and he said, "Do you trust me?" I hesitated for a moment and replied, "Yes, I do." So off we went to get the motorcycle. He pulled it out of the garage and told me, "Okay, baby girl, hop on." I jumped on the back, shaking, holding on to him tight, praying he didn't kill me, and down the road we went. After we got down the road a bit, he pulled the bike over and said, "Okay, baby girl, now it's your turn." "What? Excuse me? You want me to do what?" He looked at me, eyes gleaming, and said, "Do you trust me?" Again, hesitating, I jumped on the front and he jumped on the back. He explained to me what to do, and down the road we went. Wind blowing in my hair and his smile from ear to ear, laughing. I could only imagine what people thought at this sight. Myself in scrubs and him on the back, one arm around my waist and the other clutching a cane. It was one of the most exhilarating and freeing moments of my life. Granted, probably not the smartest, but it was fun nonetheless. When we returned home that day, he put the bike away and he looked at me and said, "Never let fear limit you." In that moment, I knew Spirit had sent this very special man to me to teach me a very valuable lesson. Never let fear limit you. I worked with Mr. J for just about over a year before I left in-home care to go back to my passion with special needs individuals. As we would spend so much time just sitting together, sharing stories and life experiences, with me drinking in everything he had to say, our friendship grew and blossomed into a grandparent-grandchild dynamic, with him and his wife often referring to me as their little white child. Now, most would take offense to this, but I knew it was a term of endearment and something out of love. Our conversations eventually turned into spiritual ones, with him sharing thoughts and feelings about what happens at the end of life and who God is to him. This is when my intuition started buzzing, and I knew he was beginning to prepare for the transition. That May, I was blessed with my current position and put my 2 weeks notice in. Mr. J wasn't the happiest about me leaving, but deep down he knew that my time with him was done. We both knew Spirit was telling us it was time to move on. Our last day together was spent sitting in his truck, yet again, watching the farmhand plow the fields. I'll never forget the look in his eye when he turned to me and started sharing that he went to make his final arrangements, ensuring his family was going to be taken care of, updating his will, and dividing his land and assets. He then dropped the bomb. His family didn't know he was doing this. With tears in his eyes, he shared with me his memories of meeting his lovely wife at the local dance for the very first time, recalling everything in such perfect details, memories of each of his girls and his grandchildren's birth, and many other significant moments in his life. As I sat there just drinking it all in, he said to me, "I am afraid of how my family will get along without me." I turned to Mr. J and with a stern voice said to him, "Mr. J, you know our souls are eternal and we never really die. We simply transform. You taught me so much in our time together, and having no fear was one of the biggest lessons you taught." We went on to talk a little bit more about transitioning into Spirit, and at this point, he has done all he really could do to ensure his family is taken care of. It's time for you to seize the moment and live in joy for however long you have left, I told him. When I left that day, he told me be sure to come around and visit. Sadly, I never did. Many times I would drive by our old haunts and think to myself, I really should take time to go visit Mr. J. But I never seized that moment and went. Well, one cold February day, I drove by one of the places we used to go to all the time to get fresh wraps, which was his wife's favorite breakfasts. And I had an overwhelming desire to stop in and get one. I pulled up to the gas station and went to order. As I was talking with the employee who was working when we were always there, she said to me, "I am sorry to hear about your guy." Puzzled, I asked her what she meant by that. She then started to tell me that he had passed away in December, a few weeks before Christmas. All I could remember was the look of shock on my face. In that moment, Mr. J gave me one last gift or reminder of a lesson long forgotten. Seize that moment. In order for us to have stories, we have to create them with the people we are blessed to have in our lives. We know each person is placed there for a reason. Sunday dinners, holidays, celebrations, or those quiet family moments are all a part of creating the special moments and memories we hold so dear. It's amazing how if we can grow and expand, we are willing to invest the time in making a connection with each other. Time moves by so fast, and just like a river, you can't touch that same water twice. Once you blink, the future becomes the past. We are all blessed to have opportunities to share and grow with one another. Through those connections, sharing moments in the here and now or memories of times gone by, no matter how big or small, with other souls, we will grow, becoming a part of with those moments becoming a part of who we are. Today, I get to share this story with all of you, people I have come to hold very special place in my heart. It is through this story, Spirit has given you a message that has become a part of your journey. Spirit places people in our lives for various reasons, to teach lessons for our own soul growth, and to offer wisdom. All we need to do is to be open and seize those moments and connections whenever they arrive, no matter if they're close loved ones or a stranger on the street. However, another important aspect of this lesson, since there is duality in everything, sometimes people we share moments, events, and experiences with are not all lovey-dovey moments. Sometimes they're a little on the more negative side. However, these negative connections should also be celebrated. These are our master lessons and end up changing the fabric of who we are, realigning us and placing us on the path that we are to take. So try to be grateful for those moments and connections too. As hard as it can be to deal with, they do happen for a reason. When we stand in love, celebrating each soul for who they are and sharing our experiences with each other, we grow, we transform. And if we listen, we may be able to have the opportunity to carry the feather instead of the stone, and to be a lighthouse in someone else's storm. Celebrating and learning from each other, obtaining that soul growth we are all here for. If we can take the time to open our hearts, honor others at the place they are at, and see a soul instead of skin color, nationality, sexual orientation, religious beliefs, etc., we can stand as one, uncovering the shadows and injustices, creating a more heart-centered reality for all of us to enjoy. In short, be the change you wish to see.